Well, let's talk a little bit more in depth about this guy's new movie. Let's get into it. Hey, welcome back to my channel. Hope everyone's doing well out there, and we're going to do a spoiler-filled deep dive on the Halloween Kills. I haven't seen it the second time yet, but I've been thinking about it since Thursday night, since I saw it with Dale A. from the Bat and Spider podcast. If you do yourself a favor, check those guys out wherever you get your podcasts. Those guys are awesome. And I got to see it Thursday night. I released out of the theater reaction video, and I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. Now, I've gotten to think about it a lot more. I am still going to see it a second time in the theaters, either next week with my buddy Rich or again with my buddy Dale the week after that. So I will be seeing it again, but I have a lot of thoughts and I wanted to talk about it, so let's get into it. Now, David Gordon Green is back to co-write and direct this film. He's also going to co-write and direct Halloween Ends. It's supposed to come out next October 14th. They're supposed to start filming in January, I believe, down in Savannah, Georgia. John Carpenter's back as executive producer and scored the film along with his son and his godson Daniel Davies, and the score is phenomenal. It's one of my positives of this film. This movie's an hour and 45 minutes long. It's rated R, a hard R, and just dropped on Friday in theaters, or you can see it on Peacock. But I recommend a theatrical experience if you get a chance, because it's worth seeing on the big screen. And our returning cast is Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode, Judy Greer as her daughter Karen, Annie Madchak's back as her granddaughter Allison. We got James Drew Courtney back as the Shape. Nick Castle did cameo in one scene as a Shape, but unfortunately I heard it got cut out, but it will be on the Blu-ray that gets released later this year. We have Will Patton back as Officer Hawkins. Yes, he's still alive, thank God, because I like that character, especially his chemistry with Laurie, so I'm glad he's back. And our returning cast, or returning characters from the original film. Some are played by the original actors, some are not. We got Lee Brackett back, played by Charles Cyphers, and in the original film he was Sheriff Brackett. Now he's retired and he works security at Haddonfield Memorial Hospital. Shout out to Halloween 2. We got Nancy Stevens back as Marion, the smoking nurse from the original film. Kylie Richards is back as Lindsay Wallace. We got Robert Longstreet as Lonnie Elam. And we saw him in the original film. He was making fun of Tommy when Tommy smashed his pumpkin. And then we also saw him when some kids were daring him to go into Myers' house Halloween night, and Loomis scared him off by telling him to get his ass away from there. He is in this film as Lonnie, and Anthony Michael Hall plays Tommy Doyle. And obviously Anthony Michael Hall didn't play Tommy in the original film, but they brought him in the original to play Tommy here. And it's great seeing those actors back, or those characters back on the big screen. I really enjoyed that. And the main focus isn't on Laurie in this film. I said that in my out of the theater reaction, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. And Lenny Clark's in this film. Comedian out of Boston. I love Lenny Clark, and when he popped up on screen, I heard his voice. I'm like, God damn, there's Lenny Clark in this film. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Now, obviously, this picks up moments after the 2018 film. But it doesn't go right to Laurie's house. Like in the trailer, it leads you to believe it goes right to the fire. It does not. It opens with Allison's boyfriend following Officer Hawkins down where Sartain attacked him in the first film, or the 2018 film. And he gets calls for help. Hawkins is still alive. And then we get what I think is my favorite scene in the whole movie, and a huge positive for this film. There's a flashback to 78 with a young Officer Hawkins. And the way David Green shoots it and sets it up at him and his production team, kudos has to go to them. It's spectacular. It looks like the 78 film. It feels like the 78 film. It looks like a 70s film. And they recreate Myers to a T. They recreate the Myers house to a T with the Strode Realty sign out front. Loomis is in it. And I got to be honest, the guy looks almost exactly like Donald Pleasance. When I do a close-up, you can tell it's not Donald Pleasance. But with the voice and the mannerisms, the way he looks damn close. Like 95% there, 96% there. I absolutely love the flashback. Absolutely loved it, and we get more story in Officer Hawkins and some more backstory into it. And we find out little tidbits throughout the film, because he ends up in the same hospital room as Laurie Strode. I don't want to give everything away from that flashback, but I absolutely loved everything about it. I really did. It's my favorite part of the film. It really is. I was smiling ear to ear the whole time they showed that flashback. And they show it up front, and they show pieces of it later on. And there's a shot in the flashback where Michael's standing on the front lawn of the Myers house. Loomis is on the porch, and the cops are surrounding with their guns drawn. You could freeze that, put it in a frame, and hang it on your wall. It's absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Kudos to David Gordon Green. Directs the shit out of this film overall. I think he made some mistakes during the film. We'll talk about those. But overall, I was very happy with the directing. The score is fantastic. And then we get the fire scene. And we've seen a lot of it in the trailer, and they show more of it, more mayhem here. But I think they gave away too much in the trailer. Another case of just the marketing department just showing a lot of a big set piece, and it is. Michael emerges from the fire of the house in a great shot and goes to town on these firemen. I mean, he kills them brutally. And Michael is definitely off the chain. He dials it up to 11 brutality-wise. I mean, this is on Rob Zombie level viciousness and brutality, maybe even a little bit more than those films. That's hard to believe because those films were very violent. But David Gordon Green definitely jacks up the violence to 11 in this film. I mean, it's very bloody, very gory, and there's a lot of killing. I mean, Michael kills a lot of folks. Now, as I was saying, Laurie spends all the movie, except for that one scene in the back of the pickup truck, in the hospital. So it's a lot like Halloween 2 in that respect. And the one revelation during the film is towards the end of the film, Laurie comes to the realization that, especially Hawkins lets her realize this, helps her realize this too, that it's not all about her. Michael wasn't after her in the 2018 movie. It was by chance. She gets that realization, Hawkins explains that Sartain took Michael to her house because he wanted to see them two together in the wild to see what happens. And the look on her face, it's actually a great scene. Now, one of my problems with the hospital scenes, there's two major problems with the hospital scenes. But we'll get into them in a second. So Michael's going throughout Haddonfield killing people, and we're reintroduced to Tommy, Marion, Lindsay, and Lonnie. They go to this bar every Halloween. They're having this talent show. Tommy gets up and gives a recantment of the story from '78, what happened to them that night. And this is where we get some gaps filled in about what happened that night. Especially to Lonnie, because Lonnie is a character that only popped up in 2 scenes. I think he was referenced in one other in the original film. He was not had a whole lot to do. But he tells the story about that night where he was on his way home after talking to a police officer, telling him and his other kids to get home and lock the doors. And he dropped his candy and he's on the ground picking it up, or he tripped and fell and he's picking up his candy, and Michael was walking right towards him down the sidewalk. And he curls up into a ball and he's like pleading, please don't hurt me, please don't hurt me. And when he looks up, Hawkins and his partner are standing over him and Michael's gone. But he still thinks about that. Like, it severely scared him that badly that he still thinks about it. And they raise a glass to Laurie, and while they're at the bar, they find out that Michael is back and killed a bunch of people and Laurie's in the hospital. And this sets Tommy off because he has PTSD from that night, and he has, right away he goes into vengeance mode. Like, he wants to find Michael and kill him. And that's all. This movie mainly focuses on the town and these people. There's more people involved from the town than ever before. Sure, in part 2 we saw people at the Myers house smashing windows, but we really didn't know any of the people's faces or names. In part 4 we got the roaming band of guys that were at that bar once they find out the police station's been taken out, and they take it upon themselves to start searching the streets for Michael because they killed that guy by accident. Something similar happens in this film, but it doesn't work as well as in that film. And that's one of my big bones of contention about this film. And as the movie goes on, it shows the town getting riled up into a mob. They want blood. They want to stop this, and they don't want to relive 40 years ago because it still haunts Haddonfield. They explored some of this in Halloween 6 where they banned Haddonfield, and the kids were trying to bring it back. And there was scripts over the years. Carpenter was even involved in one where they wanted to just focus like more of like a psychological study on the town of what Myers did to it after '78. And it's always been a very interesting angle, and we do see it here. They definitely hyped that up. I mean, this is more focused on the town. I mean, Allison gets a lot to do, especially in the second part of the film, because she wants to take Michael out after what he's done to her grandmother and sacrifice 40 years of her life because all she did was think about that night, and killed her father. She wants vengeance for that, and she goes off with Lonnie Elam and his son to hunt Michael down. And Lindsay her and Marion and this other couple meet at the bar, and they're out in their vehicle, and they see these kids at this playground by themselves, and she goes over and tells the kids to go home. Meanwhile, Michael shows up and kills Marion and this other couple, although the wife does something completely stupid. There's characters who do really dumb shit in this film, and she is one of them. I know in slasher films characters do dumb shit all the time, but it's so egregious, some of the dumb shit, it's like, why? There's a smarter way to handle that scene. And basically at the end, Michael goes back to his house. And these 2 guys live there, they remodeled it, and he kills them very violently and brutally. And we get a really kick-ass scene where This mob of people get Michael and they shoot him multiple times. They beat the shit out of him and he's on the ground. And they think he's dead. We as the audience know you can't kill Michael like that. And he gets up and just takes the whole crowd out, including Brackett and Tommy. He takes them all out, very violently, very gory. And then at the end we get this surprise. Karen's standing up in Michael's sister's bedroom looking down over the street and there's cops out front, EMTs. Michael shows up behind her and kills her. In a shocking scene, and the movie ends right there. So it ends on a cliffhanger. It's the middle chapter of a trilogy. Obviously, I know some people I saw some comments online that were a little disappointed there's not a lot of story here. There is, but it's more about introducing the town and how they've been affected by this tragedy that happened 40 years ago. And reintroducing characters. I mean, Tommy Doyle gets a lot of screen time. Lindsay gets a little bit of screen time. Marion, just a little bit at the bar. Lonnie gets some. Tommy gets the most out of the returning characters, for sure. Laurie's not in the movie a whole lot, and all her scenes are confined to the hospital. Positives about this film. The mask looks kick-ass. The directing is really well done by David Gordon Green. The score is phenomenal. I love the new score by Carpenter and his son and Daniel Davies. I can't wait to listen to the whole thing. The kills are brutal, bloody, and violent, and I enjoyed them. I really did. I thought they were really well done. I mean, this is a hardcore slasher film for sure. The acting's good. Everybody's good here. That's not the problem. That's not one of my problems with the film. The flashback is kick-ass. I absolutely am in love with that flashback scene. David Gordon Green deserves a lot of props for that. I don't know how much money they had to dedicate to that, but the detail and everything, I loved it. Loved it. I can't say enough. And I love that Laurie comes to the realization, Hawkins helps her realize that she is not the reason Michael showed up at her house. Sartain was the reason. So it's nice that that character got that realization that it's not all about her. That's not why Michael's doing any of this. He's just evil. And Karen dying was a surprise. I didn't expect her to die. I thought maybe in the third film, maybe. But that was definitely a surprise at the end of the film. So those are all positives. I really did like this film. Now here's my negatives. We get a character from the first film that we saw in the exercise yard when the podcasters go to visit Michael, one of the inmates. We see him in the beginning of the film. I think they even show him in a shot when the bus crashes and that father and son duo find the bus and the people walking along the road. He's back in this film for a good 5 to 10 minutes. I think it's closer to 10 minutes, but the movie stops dead. And I know why this scene's in the film. To focus on this guy who shows up at the hospital after Tommy is there talking to Laurie and getting the crowd riled up about taking vengeance on Michael Myers. And somebody says they think they saw Michael, referring to this guy. Now this guy looks nothing, well, even if you never saw Michael, you could tell. This guy's cowering, he's running away from the crowd, he's non-confrontational, he's not violent. And they chase him around this hospital. Doctors do it, nurses do it. It just doesn't feel right. It feels off the scene. And they find him up on this floor. Karen helps him hide up on this floor and they lock the doors, but they start smashing the windows. He smashes the window, jumps out, lands on the sidewalk, and this prosthetic looks great. He's mutilated on the sidewalk. Looks great. Hats off to the special effects team. It looks great. But this section of the film stops the film dead in its tracks. Literally takes all the wind out of the sails of this film. The momentum drags to a halt to concentrate on this 5 to 10 minute sequence. That honestly, if they cut it out and cut that character out, you wouldn't miss it. He has no bearings on the rest of the film. He means nothing to the narrative at all. I know why they put it there. They put it there to show that Michael has turned the townspeople into what he is, a monster. I think there was a more organic way to do it. This is a little too, I don't know what it is, but it's just, there was an easier way to do it. They could have just ripped off part 2 with the Ben Tramer thing. This guy could have been kind of dressed like Michael and a bunch of guys could have beat the shit out of him. They could have did that. It would have felt more organic than what they did at this hospital. This scene means nothing. It really does. I know what they were trying to do. It doesn't work. And I think it was a little self-indulgent for David Gordon Green to leave it in there. That's my opinion. Other people might like that scene. I absolutely hated it. It stopped the movie dead in its tracks, and it loses a lot of momentum because of that scene. Now, it does pick up like a freight train right after it. And this guy kills himself. Tommy turns to Karen and goes, "I'm sorry." And then we're right on to the last act. It's like nobody dwells on it. It's just like, okay, that guy's dead. Let's move on. It's like, so what was the point of that? I know what they were trying to say. But I think I liked it more where it was like the villagers rising up against Frankenstein. You didn't even need that. You really didn't. It was a waste of time, and it stopped the movie dead. Again, you can cut that out and you wouldn't miss it, and that character means nothing. Nobody even cared about that character. You won't even remember that character really if you didn't just show up all of a sudden. And he gets no characterization. He's just this crazy guy that escaped from the bus because of crash, because of Michael, and he's running around Haddonfield. So that's a big negative. That section is a big, big negative for me. I didn't like it when I saw it, and thinking about it more, I still don't like it. There's some dialogue by Jamie Lee Curtis in the hospital. There's some monologues that Laurie Strode gives to Hawkins that feels like bullshit, pretentious bullshit. It really does. And it almost makes Laurie self-aware that she's in a slasher film. I don't like that. This isn't Scream. There was no need for some of those lines. This is a Halloween film. It didn't feel, it doesn't feel like something a real person would say, even in that situation. Now I like some of the banter between Hawkins and Laurie, and I like that they even go into how they had a connection back in the day, and Hawkins had a thing for her back then, but he knew that she had a crush on Ben Tramer. I like that callback. There's a callback to Halloween 3. We get the kids with the masks, and then Michael kills Marion and those two people in the car, and he puts the masks on her head when he leaves their bodies behind the playground. That's all cool. I love it. There's some callbacks to some other films in the series as well. I love all that stuff. Those are my main negatives. Some of the monologues Laurie gives in the hospital and that section with that inmate, I really didn't like. Those are my two big gripes. And some of the dumb character choices. I know you're going to have some of that, but some of these are so on the nose and ridiculous. I'm like, there seems like there would have been a smarter way to handle that. Overall, I still really, really enjoyed this film. And I can't wait to see it again on the big screen. I know it seems like I'm bitching a lot, but those few things really grate at me. But overall, I still had a great time. There's some great kills. James Jude Courtney is with Nick Castle as the best Myers of all time, especially after this film. The acting was really good. David Gordon Green directed the shit out of this film, except for that choice to leave that scene in. And Carpenter's score is amazing. Overall, I really liked this film. Now, I gave it 8.5 out of 10 out of the theater. After thinking about it, I'm going to downgrade just a little bit to 8 out of 10. I still really, really like this film, and it could go back up after I see it a second time. But I wanted to make this video because I had a lot of thoughts on the film. And I know this video is going a little long, so I'm going to end it here. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, share this video. I really would appreciate that. Leave a comment down below if you've seen it. Let me know if you loved it or not. If you had any problems with it, leave that comment down below. Tell me I'm crazy. Maybe you think I'm crazy for some of the things I'm bitching about. That's cool too. I'll be back later in the week with a ranking video for all the Halloween films. But until then, bye.